Welcome back to Books on the Mic, everybody. We're on Chapter 11 of our deep dives, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now's a good time. You know the drill. You guys bring the books, and we bring the insights. Today, we're cracking open The One Thing by Gary Keller and J. Papasan.
Ooh, this one's a good one. It really challenges you to think differently about how you approach success. The basic idea is that laser focus on your most important task, they call it your one thing, is like the key to achieving extraordinary results.
Okay, sounds simple enough on the surface, but I have a feeling it's a lot harder than it sounds.
hmm
So how do we even begin to figure out what our one thing is?
Well, the authors start by debunking some of the common myths about success, stuff we often believe that actually holds us back. Like one of the first ones is this idea that everything matters equally.
Yeah, I can see that.
Have you ever felt like, you're juggling a million tasks, totally overwhelmed and not getting anything done?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like trying to spin all those plates at once,
Mhm.
and you know some of them are just going to crash.
Exactly. So the one thing introduces this thing called the Pareto principle. It's also known as the 80-20 rule. You've probably heard of it.
I have.
So it's this principle that's been observed in so many different fields, from economics to software development. And it basically says that, 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts.
So it's about figuring out which activities make the biggest impact and just focusing our energy there.
Exactly. They use the example of this guy, Joseph Duran, a management consultant. He applied this principle to manufacturing, and he found that, a really small number of defects were causing most of the problems. So by focusing on fixing those vital few flaws, he was able to, massively improve quality and efficiency. It's about those 20% activities that drive 80% of the results.
Makes you wonder how much time we waste on stuff that doesn't really matter.
Totally. And the book, it really pushes us to be ruthless about prioritizing, eliminating distractions, that kind of thing. Another myth they tackle is that multitasking makes you more productive.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that one. I feel like I'm getting so much more done when I've got like a million tabs open and I'm switching back and forth between tasks, but honestly, I end up just feeling scattered.
Yeah, it's a trap. The book uses this computer analogy to explain why multitasking actually makes you less efficient. So even though computers look like they're doing all this stuff at once, they're actually just switching back and forth really, really fast. And just like computers, our brains, they aren't really designed for effective multitasking.
So each time we switch tasks, there's like a mental cost involved.
Yeah, you got it. And this constant shifting, it actually makes us slower, increases the likelihood of errors, and the quality of our work goes down. It's way more effective to just focus on one thing at a time, give it your full attention, and then move on to the next.
So instead of being a multitasking superhero, we should be single-tasking masters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want you to embrace that focused attention, be deliberate about eliminating distractions. They even suggest physically creating a distraction-free environment for your most important work.
All right, so ditch the multitasking. Focus on the vital few. What other success lies are they debunking?
Well, they talk about the idea that success requires constant discipline.
Okay.
And they argue that, while discipline is important, it's not about being disciplined in every single area of your life all the
hmm
time. It's about strategically focusing your discipline on building the right habits to support your one thing.
That makes sense. I mean, trying to be disciplined about everything just feels impossible.
Yeah. And they highlight Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. As a kid, he struggled with focus, but he was able to achieve all that he did through building these disciplined habits. It wasn't about being perfectly disciplined in everything he did. It was about focusing on the things that made him a better swimmer.
So building the right habits is almost like creating a system that supports our goals. It makes it easier to stay on track.
Exactly. They also talk about how willpower, it's like a muscle. You use it, it gets tired, but it can also be strengthened over time with practice.
It makes me think of that study that they mentioned in the book about the Israeli parole boards. I think it was, right?
Yeah.
Where the judges, they were way more likely to grant parole early in the day or right after they had a break.
Yep, that's the one. And as the day went on, they made more and more decisions. Their willpower seemed to deplete, and they ended up like defaulting to the easier option, just denying parole.
Yeah, it just goes to show even like these experienced professionals, they're susceptible to decision fatigue
Totally.
and that our willpower, it's a limited resource. We have to be careful how we use it.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of prioritizing like the tasks that require the most willpower and then doing those when your mental energy is highest. So for example, if writing is your one thing, you might want to like block out time for that first thing in the morning when your mind is fresh.
Right. It's like we're most vulnerable to making bad decisions later in the day when we're mentally drained.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it reinforces that idea that building habits can help you conserve your willpower. If you're in the habit of doing something, you don't have to rely on willpower to do it. It just becomes automatic.
Oh, I like that. So it's not about forcing ourselves to be disciplined all the time. It's about setting up systems and habits that support our goals.
Exactly. Now, another interesting point they make is about work-life balance. They actually say that, like, striving for perfect balance can be counterproductive.
Really? I thought work-life balance was like what we're all supposed to be aiming for.
Yeah, it's a popular idea for sure. But they have a different take in the book. They call it work-life counterbalancing. And their argument is that trying to maintain this, like, perfect equilibrium all the time can actually lead to you constantly feeling like you're falling short in one area or the other.
I can see that. It's like trying to juggle these two really important things, but they're both demanding so much from you.
Exactly. Counterbalancing is more like saying it's okay if one area takes precedence for a while, right? There will be times when work needs more attention and times when, family, personal life needs to be the priority.
So it's about being flexible and shifting your focus as needed rather than trying to keep everything perfectly balanced all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a more like realistic way to manage all the demands in our lives.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what's the last lie they debunk?
Well, the last one they talk about is this belief that big is bad. I think a lot of people, they shy away from aiming high because they're afraid of the pressure or the complications that might come with success.
Right.
But the book argues that thinking big is actually like essential if you want to achieve extraordinary results.
Yeah, it's like we put these limits on ourselves before we even start.
Totally. The one thing, it uses the example of Sabir Bhatia, the founder of Hotmail.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He had this unshakable belief that he could build a massive company, even though he didn't have a ton of resources when he started out.
And he did.
He did. His story shows like the power of having a big vision and not letting those limiting beliefs hold you back.
So we've debunked these common myths. We talked about focusing on the vital few, ditching multitasking, building those good habits, managing willpower, thinking big. But how do we actually put all of this into practice? How do we figure out what our one thing is and start working toward these extraordinary results?
Well, that's where the real magic of the one thing comes in. And it all starts with what they call the focusing question.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's this simple but powerful tool designed to like cut through all the clutter and help you pinpoint the most important thing you can do right now to achieve your goals.
All right, so what's the question?
The question is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
What's the one thing I can do? Okay, I like it already. It sounds so simple, yet so profound. But how does asking this actually help you get these amazing results?
Well, it forces you to prioritize, like ruthlessly, to just get down to the core tasks that'll have the biggest impact. It's like finding that first domino in a chain reaction.
Right.
And by focusing on that one crucial action, you set in motion this whole series of events that can lead to like some really incredible outcomes. They even described this physics experiment where a single domino was able to topple one that was like 50% larger.
Wow.
And they calculated that like if you kept going with that pattern, the 57th domino would be tall enough to reach the moon.
Whoa. That's a powerful visual.
Right, yeah.
So it's not just about identifying our one thing in a general sense, but also about like breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps and focusing on the most impactful thing in that moment.
Exactly. And by consistently asking and answering that focusing question, you create this like momentum that propels you towards your goals. They call it the success habit.
The success habit. Okay, I love that. So it's not a one-time thing. It's something you made part of your daily routine.
You got it. It's a habit that guides your decisions and actions. They suggest actually writing down the focusing question and then scheduling time every day to answer it.
I'm starting to see how powerful this could be. But what about those bigger long-term goals? Like, how do we connect our someday dreams to the actions we take right now?
That's where goal setting to the now comes in. It's all about bridging the gap between your aspirations and what you're doing every day. It creates a path from your someday goals to what you can do right now.
I like it. How does that work?
So You start with that someday goal and break it down into smaller chunks. A 5-year goal, then a 1-year goal, then monthly, weekly, daily, and then finally what you can do right now.
Okay, so it's about taking that big dream and making it feel more tangible, more manageable.
Exactly. And they have this really interesting point. They say visualizing the process of achieving the goal is actually more effective than just visualizing the outcome.
Well, that's fascinating. Why is that? I always thought it was about picturing yourself at the finish line, achieving that ultimate goal.
It turns out that when you visualize the process, you have to think about the steps involved. You anticipate, potential roadblocks and figure out how you're going to get around them.
Oh, so it's a more active way of thinking about it?
Exactly. It's like mental rehearsal for the
I
journey.
like that. Mental rehearsal.
Yeah, and it makes you way more likely to stay focused and actually achieve your goals.
Okay, so we've debunked those success myths.
Yeah.
We've identified our one thing. We've set goals that connect to what we're doing right now. What else?
Well, the book goes on to discuss living for productivity. It's all about taking action and maximizing your output.
Okay, so how do we do that?
With the key tools they recommend is time blocking.
Okay, time blocking. Is that like a fancy way of saying scheduling? I mean, my calendar's already packed.
It's a bit more than that. It's about really carving out time in your day, specifically for your one thing, and treating that time like almost as sacred.
So no checking email,
No.
social media.
Nope. No distractions. They use the example of Stephen King, the author.
Oh.
He blocks out like 4 hours every morning for writing, and he sticks to that schedule no matter what.
That's amazing. He's written, what, like 100 books?
Something like that. And it just shows you what you can accomplish with consistent, dedicated time for your one thing. They suggest you aim for at least 4 hours each day.
Wow, 4 hours. I don't know if I could swing that.
It's not always easy, but it requires a shift in how you think about your time. You have to see it as an investment in your most important priority.
Right. It's not just another thing on your to-do list. It's the most important thing on your to-do list.
Exactly. They talk about working on event time rather than clock time.
What does that mean?
So instead of just stopping work at 5:00 or whenever, you focus on completing your one thing, even if it takes longer than expected. It's about being results-oriented.
Okay, so it's not about just putting in the hours. It's about getting the job done.
Exactly. And they give this example of like a dairy farmer. They don't just go home at 5 o'clock. They go home when the cows are milked, whenever that is.
I like that. It's about being focused on the outcome.
Exactly. So once you have that time blocked out, what are the commitments we need to make to ensure we are actually productive during that time?
Okay, yeah, good question.
The book outlines 3 of them. They are mastery, continual improvement, and accountability. First, there's the commitment to mastery. So it's about striving to become the absolute best you can be at your one thing.
Right.
And they talk about that 10,000-hour rule, the idea that it takes about 10,000 hours of practice to master anything.
10,000 hours. Wow.
And if you think about it, if you are spending 4 hours a day on your one thing, that means you're well on your way to accumulating those 10,000 hours and becoming really good at what you do.
Okay, so it's not about being perfect right away. It's about putting in the work, being patient, and getting better over time.
Exactly. And then the next one is continual improvement. So that means always looking for better ways to do things. It's about being open to new ideas and always trying to improve your skills.
So even if you're already successful, there's always room to grow and get better.
Totally. And the last one, accountability, is all about taking ownership of your outcomes. So you got to hold yourself accountable for achieving your goals. And they really stress the power of having an accountability partner, someone who can support you, encourage you, and give you a nudge when you need it.
Yeah, just having someone to check in with, it can make such a difference.
Totally. It's like having an external force keeping you motivated and helping you stay on track.
Okay, so we've made these commitments.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are some things that try to stop us. Like, what are the obstacles that we should watch out for?
You're right. The book calls them thieves of productivity, and they identify 4 main ones. First, there's the inability to say no.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's so easy to get caught up in all the demands, especially these days. But the problem is, every time you say yes to something, you're essentially saying no to something else.
Right.
And if you're not careful, you'll end up saying no to your one thing.
They talk about Steve Jobs and how he was super selective about what projects he took on.
Right. He thought saying no to hundreds of ideas was crucial to Apple's success. They had to focus on the very best ones.
So it's about protecting that time you've blocked out for your one thing, even if it means disappointing people or turning down things that seem like good opportunities.
It's tough, but it's about saying no to the good so you can say yes to the great.
Okay, so how do you get better at saying no? Like, how do you do that without feeling guilty or unhelpful?
It's about being clear on what your priorities are. You have to communicate them to other people. And sometimes, that might involve offering an alternative solution, redirecting them to someone else who can help, or just being honest and saying, you're too busy right now. It's just learning to say no in a graceful way while staying true to your goals.
What about the other thieves?
The second one they talk about is the fear of chaos. So that's basically recognizing that when you're laser focused on your one thing, other things are going to get left undone.
Yeah, you can't do it all, right?
All right.
But if you don't, it feels like everything's going to fall apart.
Exactly. But the book wants us to embrace that a little bit, to accept that there will be loose ends, things that don't get done right away, maybe a little bit of messiness.
So don't be afraid of a little chaos.
Right. Don't be afraid of it. You can address those other things later once your one thing is complete.
Yeah, like that old saying, a messy desk is a sign of a busy mind.
Exactly. It's a reminder that you're not going for perfection, you're going for progress.
Okay, so the first two, those are kind of like external forces, the demands of other people, and our own fear of things not being perfect. What about internal things that can sabotage our productivity?
That brings us to the third thief, poor health habits. We all know that if you're not taking care of yourself, it impacts your energy, your focus, your productivity. But it's so easy to, let those healthy habits slip when you're stressed and busy.
Yeah, you skimp on sleep to get more work done. You grab fast food because there's no time to cook. You let the stress build up because you don't have time to relax.
It's a vicious cycle. The book says that our health is literally the foundation of productivity. We can't perform at our best if we're not taking care of ourselves.
They talk about creating a daily energy plan, which is like making sure you get enough sleep, eat nutritious food, get some exercise.
Yeah, and treat your health as a non-negotiable priority. See it as an investment.
An investment in yourself.
Exactly. And then the final thief of productivity is an unsupportive environment. So that means realizing that the people you're around and the spaces you inhabit can have a big impact on your focus and your ability to achieve your goals.
Right, like we've talked about, our social networks can have a huge influence on our habits, both good and bad.
Exactly. So they say to surround yourself with people who support your goals, people who inspire you. And then on the flip side, they talk about accountability partners again. Those people who can help you stay focused.
Right, because just telling someone about your goals makes you more likely to actually follow through.
Right. It's like a public commitment.
Okay, so how about our physical environment? How can we design our workspace so it helps us stay on track with our one thing?
Well, they say to try and create a workspace that is distraction-free. So that might mean decluttering your desk, finding a quiet place to work, or getting some noise-canceling headphones. It's about creating a space where you can fully concentrate.
Like a little sanctuary for your one thing.
Exactly. And then it's also about setting boundaries with the people around you.
Yeah.
Letting your family, roommates, coworkers know that you need this time and space to focus and asking them to respect your boundaries.
Okay, so it's about creating a supportive environment, both physically and socially.
Exactly. It's recognizing that the environment can have a huge impact on how we behave and what we are able to accomplish.
This has been a really interesting deep dive so far. We've talked about debunking success myths, identifying our one thing, and even uncovered 4 thieves of productivity. Where do we go from here? What's the big takeaway from all of this?
That's a great question. And that takes us to the heart of what the one thing is really about. Living a life of no regrets. It's not just about achieving those external markers of success. It's about creating a fulfilling life that is in line with your values and your purpose. It's about, getting to the end of your life and saying, I'm glad I did, not I wish I had.
I love that. And the book, it shares this powerful story about a father and son who are putting together a puzzle of the world.
Right.
And the son, he finishes super quickly. And when his dad asks him how he did it, he says, there's a picture of a man on the other side. When I put the man together, the world fell into place.
It's such a great metaphor, right? Success comes from within. When you focus on your own personal growth, the rest kind of falls into place.
So it's not about achieving success to be happy. It's about finding that happiness and fulfillment within yourself and then letting that drive your success in the world.
Exactly. That's the key message. Success is an inside job. And when you have a clear purpose, you know your priorities, and you focus your energy on the actions that truly matter, you're setting yourself up for a life of both achievement and fulfillment. A life without those regrets.
That's a powerful message and something I think we could all use a reminder of. And it all starts with, identifying our one thing, not just generally, but right now, in this moment.
Totally.
So it's like asking yourself, what's the one thing I can do right now to move closer to that life of no regrets?
Yes. And what's great is you can apply this to like any area of your life, your relationships, your work, your health, whatever is important to you.
Oh, wow. So it's like a universal tool for success in any area.
Exactly. It's a way to think, to prioritize, to take action, and ultimately create the life you want. And they also talk about the importance of thinking big. Not letting those limiting beliefs hold you back. They have this inspiring story about the founder of Hotmail, Sabir Batadia, who came to America with basically nothing, but he had this unwavering belief in himself.
Yeah, and he built one of the most successful email services in the world.
He did. It's a testament to the fact that we are often capable of much more than we think we are. If we dare to dream big and take action, amazing things can happen.
It's inspiring to remember that, no matter what our circumstances are, we always have the power to choose what we focus on. And those choices can lead us to extraordinary results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if we don't achieve like all of our wildest dreams, the very act of trying can change us for the better. It pushes us to grow, to learn, to become more than we thought possible.
This has been such a thought-provoking discussion. The one thing really does give you a framework for achieving amazing things and living a life without regrets.
It's about focusing on what matters most, eliminating distractions, and really committing to mastering your craft.
It's about developing those good habits, managing your willpower, and being in an environment that supports your goals.
And at the end of the day, it's about living a life that has meaning. It's about taking control of your life and making it the best it can be.
I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've debunked those success myths, talked about the power of the focusing question, and started to think about what it means to live a life without any regrets. But there's still so much more to unpack.
Yeah, we have a lot more to discuss.
Definitely. So join us for part 2, where we're going to get into some more practical strategies for putting these ideas into action and overcoming the obstacles that get in the way of achieving extraordinary results.
We'll dig deeper into time blocking, learn how to better manage willpower, and talk about how to create that supportive environment that helps us thrive.
We can't wait to continue this journey with you.
And until then, keep asking yourself, what's the one thing I can do?
Welcome back to our deep dive into the one thing. We really started to unpack some powerful concepts in the last part.
We did, and I'm excited to keep going. In this part, I'm really interested in getting into the practical side of things. We talked about the principles, debunked those myths, but how do we actually put all this into practice in our daily lives?
Right, let's get tactical. One of the most powerful tools they give us is this concept of time blocking.
Okay, time blocking. We touched on it a bit earlier,
Yeah.
and I remember them recommending, blocking out at least 4 hours each day for your one thing. But honestly, for a lot of people, finding that much uninterrupted time, it just seems impossible.
It can definitely be a challenge, but it all starts with a shift in mindset. You have to view that time block as an investment, like it's non-negotiable.
So no checking emails, no social media, none of that during that time.
No, it's about protecting that time. You're creating a space where you can truly focus on making progress on your one thing.
They talked about working on event time instead of clock time.
Right. It's about focusing on the outcome, not just putting in the hours. Remember that dairy farmer analogy?
Yeah.
They don't go home at 5 o'clock. They go home when the cows are milked.
Right, right. I like that. It's a good reminder to be flexible and, adjust your schedule to the needs of your one thing. But I'm thinking, what about those days when stuff just pops up?
Life happens, right?
Yeah, or your schedule's just packed. How do you make it work?
It's about being adaptable, getting creative. Maybe you can't block out 4 hours every single day, but could you find even 30 minutes? An hour?
So even those smaller pockets of time can be valuable.
Absolutely. And it's about planning ahead. If you know you're going to have a crazy week, try to schedule your time block for a day when you know you'll have a bit more flexibility.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say we've carved out the time. How do we actually stay focused during those precious hours?
Right, you got to minimize those distractions.
Yeah.
The book talks a lot about creating a distraction-free environment. Maybe that's turning off those notifications, closing those extra tabs on your computer, or finding a quiet spot where you can really concentrate
Okay.
and communicate those boundaries. Let the people around you know you need this time to focus.
Yeah, put up that do not disturb sign.
Exactly. And be mindful of your own internal distractions too. If you feel your mind wandering, gently guide it back to the task at hand.
Okay, good tips. It's amazing how much more you can get done when you can just block out everything else and just focus.
Totally.
So we've talked about managing our time. What about willpower? We talked about it earlier, how it's like a muscle that can get tired. So how do we manage our willpower so we have the energy and focus to really tackle our one thing, especially when it's, something challenging?
Yeah. Willpower is so important, and the book has some good strategies for boosting and conserving it. First, remember, it is a limited resource. It gets depleted as you make decisions throughout the day. It's not something you can just switch on whenever you want.
Right, like those parole boards we talked about.
Mhm.
Even judges, they experience decision fatigue.
Exactly. So try to schedule your most important tasks, the ones that require a lot of willpower, for those times when your energy is highest, usually earlier in the day. Don't wait until you're already drained.
Okay, so prioritize that one thing time for when you're feeling fresh and focused.
Exactly. And, pay attention to the things that drain your willpower. Stress, lack of sleep, not eating well.
So it's about taking care of yourself.
Yeah, it's about making sure you're giving your willpower tank the right fuel.
Right, right. I like that. So it's like setting yourself up for success from the inside out. But what about those times when, you slip up, you give in to temptation, or you procrastinate? How do you get back on track?
Well, they emphasize being kind to yourself. We all make mistakes, and it's important not to get stuck in that cycle of self-criticism. Just view it as a learning opportunity and then get back to focusing on your one thing.
Yeah, it's so easy to beat yourself up, but that doesn't really help.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And remember, willpower is like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
So the more we practice making those good choices, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the people around us. How can we create a supportive environment that actually helps us reach those goals?
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is where that fourth thief of productivity comes in, an unsupportive environment. The book talks about how important it is to have people around you who are, on your team, people who support you, inspire you, and challenge you to grow.
Right, and we've talked about how our social networks can influence us, for better or worse.
Exactly. So be mindful of the company you keep. Try to build relationships with people who share your values and aspirations. And accountability partners, they can be huge.
Yeah, having someone to hold you accountable can make a big difference.
Totally. Even just sharing your goals out loud can make you more likely to achieve them.
It's like you're making a promise, not just to yourself, but to someone else.
Right. So that's the social side. But what about your physical environment? How's your workspace?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is it set up to support your productivity? The book recommends having a dedicated workspace that's free of distractions. So that might mean decluttering, finding a quiet spot, or maybe getting those noise-canceling headphones. It's about having a place where you can really focus.
I like that. It's like creating a physical representation of that mental space
Yeah.
where you can focus on your one thing without any interruptions.
Exactly. And be proactive about setting boundaries with the people around you. Let them know you need that time and space, and ask them to respect those boundaries.
Okay, so we've talked about our time, our willpower, our environment. It seems like the one thing is really about taking a holistic approach.
It is. It's about recognizing all these different aspects of our lives can impact our ability to achieve our goals. It's not just about one thing, it's about everything working together.
I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Me too.
We've covered so much, but I'm excited to see where we go next.
Me too. Well, in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to shift our focus a bit and explore the deeper meaning behind all of this. We've talked about strategies, but what's it all for? Why are we striving for success in the first place? We're going to talk about living a life of no regrets, a life that is both successful and fulfilling.
I can't wait. Welcome back to Books on the Mic. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into the one thing. And I feel like we've uncovered so many practical strategies for achieving extraordinary results.
Yeah, it's been great. We started by tackling those limiting beliefs holding us back.
Right.
Then we learned how to pinpoint our one thing with that focusing question.
Right.
And we've even started thinking about time differently, like with that concept of event time versus clock time.
Yeah, it's been a lot. But like you said at the end of the last part, I feel like there's this deeper level to it all.
Absolutely.
It's not just about getting things done or achieving success on paper. It's about living a life that feels truly meaningful, without regrets.
Exactly. All their strategies are all just tools.
Right.
And they need to be in service of something bigger. And for me, that's aligning your actions with your values,
Yeah.
creating a life that you're really proud of.
I love that. And the one thing, they share that story about the man who works his whole life to provide for his family.
Oh, yeah.
He sacrifices so much, misses out on time with his loved ones, all in the name of achieving this financial security. But then when he finally gets there, it's too late. He can't get back those lost moments.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that time, that's the most valuable thing we have.
It is. And it's so easy to get caught up in, the pursuit of achievement that we forget to actually enjoy life along the way.
Right, right. And it makes you realize that, like, work-life balance,
Yeah.
it's not just some empty phrase.
No.
It's about making conscious choices about how you spend your time, making sure you're giving your attention to the things that really, truly matter.
They even suggest that maybe striving for that perfect balance, it's not the answer. They talk about work-life counterbalancing instead.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit earlier.
Hmm.
I'd love to hear a little more about what that looks like. So it's like acknowledging that there are times when, work needs to be the priority, and then there are times when family or personal things, those need to take center stage.
Exactly. It's more fluid, It's more realistic than trying to keep everything perfectly balanced all the time, which is, let's be honest, pretty much impossible.
Right.
Counterbalancing is about being intentional about where you're focusing your energy. It's understanding that life has different seasons.
Yeah, yeah. And it's about being present in each moment, right? Whether you're at work with your family or doing something you love, it's about putting your phone down, being engaged in what you're doing, and savoring those experiences.
You got it.
It's not about compartmentalizing your life. It's about finding a way to blend all those different parts in a way that feels authentic to you.
Yeah. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is actually step away from work,
Right.
recharge, spend time with loved ones. It's about recognizing that taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's essential.
Totally. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
The one thing, it really challenges us to think about success differently.
Hmm.
Not just those external achievements, but that deeper sense of purpose.
And that's where it comes back to the focusing question, consistently asking yourself, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
Right.
When you do that, it ensures your actions are aligned with your values and your goals.
Yeah, it becomes more than just a tool for productivity. It's a way to connect what you do every day with the bigger picture.
And it's a reminder to enjoy the journey, not just focus on the destination.
Well, this deep dive into the one thing has been amazing. We've talked about productivity, purpose, and living a fulfilling life.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. So, as we wrap things up, I have to ask, what's the one thing our listeners should take away from this conversation? What's the one question they should ask themselves as they go about their day-to-day?
What's your one thing right now, and how can you make time for it today?
Such a simple question, but so powerful.
It can change everything.
And remember, even the longest journey begins with a single step. Start today, focus on your one thing, and watch what happens.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the one thing.
We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. And until next time, keep asking that powerful question and start creating a life without regrets, one step at a time.